All right, today we are tackling a stereotype that is so common. I mean, it's become a global punchline and honestly a source of huge misunderstanding. We're diving into the myth of four wives in Islam. Let's get right into it.
You've heard this, right? I'm sure you have. It gets thrown around all the time, sometimes as a joke, other times as a serious dig. This idea that every Muslim man can, or even should, have four wives is just, it's everywhere. But is that really what's going on? Is this what the religion actually teaches? Is it so kind of free-for-all, a divine command? We're going to dig into the original sources and the hard data to see what the real story is. Okay, so first things first, this belief that having four wives is some kind of mandatory rule or a celebrated perk in Islam, it's a complete and total misunderstanding of the concept. It's not an order, not even close. It's something very different. And this right here, this is the absolute core of the confusion. People think it's a command, a right, but when you actually look at the scripture, it's framed as a permission. And a permission that is tied to an incredibly strict, almost impossible condition. In fact, the guidance pretty much points you directly to monogamy if that condition can't be met. So let's not just talk about it. Let's go straight to the source. To really get this, we have to look at the exact words in the Quran and the logic it lays out. This is where it all comes from. And here it is. This is the key verse everyone talks about. It starts with the permission, 2 or 3 or 4. But, and this is the most important word in the whole verse, it immediately follows with the condition. But if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly, then only one. See, you can't separate the permission from the absolute condition of justice. Let's just break that logic down step by step. Step 1, you get the permission. Step 2, here comes the non-negotiable condition, total justice. And we're talking financially, emotionally, your time, everything. Step 3, a warning. If you even fear, you might mess up that justice. And that leads directly to the final step, the conclusion. Marry only one. The default, the safest path, is monogamy. And hey, if you had any doubt about how hard that condition is to meet, a later verse in the very same chapter just spells it out. It says you will never be able to be perfectly just between wives, no matter how hard you try. The scripture itself is telling you, look, this is basically impossible for a human being to achieve perfectly. So the takeaway here is huge. When you put it all together, the permission, the super strict condition of justice, and then the open admission that perfect justice is humanly impossible, the scripture itself is guiding you to one conclusion. A single marriage is better, it's safer, and it's the most just path. Okay, so that brings up a really big question, right? If monogamy is what's preferred, then why was this permission for more than one wife ever given in the first place? Well, the answer has nothing to do with privilege. It's all about a specific crisis in history and a heavy social responsibility. You see, this verse didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was revealed right after the Battle of Uhud. This was a devastating fight where a lot of men in the early Muslim community were killed. This created a massive social crisis. All of a sudden, you had a huge number of widows and orphans with no one to support or protect them. Knowing that history, it completely changes the motivation, doesn't it? The stereotype attributes this permission to lust or some kind of male privilege. But the reality? It was a solution for social welfare. It was a system to make sure that vulnerable women and children were cared for and brought into families, not just left alone to fend for themselves. And here's something else that's super important to know. Islam didn't invent polygyny. Not at all. In pre-Islamic Arabia, and really all over the world back then, it was common for powerful men to have unlimited wives. It was a status symbol. So Islam didn't introduce it. It came in and severely restricted it. It put a cap of 4 and then reframed the whole thing from a status symbol into a huge social responsibility, tying it to that nearly impossible condition of justice. So that's the scripture and the history. But what about today? I mean, does the stereotype even come close to matching the reality on the ground? Let's switch gears and look at the actual data from around the world. Globally, the numbers are just overwhelming. Something like 98% of Muslims around the world are in monogamous marriages. The practice of polygyny is incredibly rare, making up only about 2% of households. That is the complete and total opposite of the stereotype. Now check this out, because this data from India's National Family Health Survey is really eye-opening. Not only is the rate of polygyny among Muslims incredibly low at just 1.9%, but it's actually lower than the rate found in some other communities. I mean, that just flips the whole popular narrative on its head. And this isn't some weird fluke. The trend holds true even in massive Muslim-majority countries. You look at places like Pakistan, Indonesia, which has the largest Muslim population in the world, Egypt, Iran. In all of them, the rate is less than 1%. It's the rare exception, definitely not the rule. And to top it all off, you have this incredibly powerful warning from the Prophet Muhammad himself. He said that a man who has 2 wives and is unjust to one of them will face a severe spiritual consequence on the day of judgment. That really drives home just how serious that demand for justice actually is. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to this one question. When you look at all the evidence, the scripture, the history, the data, is the main theme here really about getting permission to do something? Or is it about the absolute, non-negotiable, and almost impossible demand for justice? Everything seems to point to justice. Thanks so much for tuning in.